All right, today we're going to take a look at something a little bit different after last week's PRX review, which is actually on the wrist right now. I wanted to do something a little bit less mainstream, and I think I found the perfect watch for that. Today we're going to take a look at the Hamilton Traveler's Dual Timer. Now, this is something super different that is just a ton of fun. So as you can see, I do have it on the gold bracelet, and we'll talk about that in a bit. So right off the bat, this is really something unlike anything I've ever seen. These, for some reason, have become relatively popular in the last year or two. And they do seem to pop up for sale quite often. This is obviously a vintage watch. But let's talk a little bit about the things that make this so cool. So first off, the dial. Obviously, there's two different crowns, two different ability to set two different time zones here. Each one does operate independently. So obviously, just pull out the crown, set the time. This one operates independently too. Pull out the crown, set the time. Not sure if you can see there, but each crown is signed. But really, for me, I also do love the different type of font there. Very Art Deco for me. But really what makes this watch so cool, in my opinion, are the dimensions. So here we're looking at a 23 millimeter width by a 44 length. Now this is not your typical rectangular watch. We see a lot of tanks nowadays, especially the vintage ones that are starting to become very popular, that are very, very small. But this is certainly something very different. Now, the reason I do love this watch and it caught my attention was because of the curved case. Now, we see a lot of Hamilton watches, especially the vintage ones, that have this curved design. You can even see the crystal there on top. And to me, it really reminded me a lot of the Cartier, the Americain, or the American, however you want to call it, that has this curved design. Now that one does come in different iterations, bigger, smaller, but this one to me has that kind of proportion and the curved design. As we'll see right now on the wrist, it does hug it quite well. But for some reason, I haven't been able to find anything on this one online, so I figured I'd make this video on it. But besides those two times, there really isn't much to this. Now the back does have that vintage Hamilton stamps on it. And as you can see, I did have this originally on this leather strap. Now it does come with the Hamilton stamp on it. I'm not sure how genuine that is. It does feel a little cheap. So I took it off, but I'm certainly going to be alternating between this and this bracelet. Now this is one of those, I forget the name for them, but the stretch bracelets. That actually this Ventura came with something similar to it. This watch, while it is 23 millimeters width of the case, the lugs themselves are actually 17. So it was kind of difficult to find, but of course eBay has everything nowadays, huh? Now on the wrist, on the bracelet, it wears very differently than with the strap, and I'll show some footage of both of them. But to me, on the bracelet, if you can pull off the gold, which again, I know it's a little much, but if you're gonna go for this kind of look, I wanted to really complete it. With the bracelet, it does hug the wrist very, very well. Now keep in mind, I do have a small wrist when you look at that footage, and this watch certainly does wear a little big for the dimensions while not being obviously very big. But besides that, there's not much to say on this watch. I wanted to bring out a couple of watches to really show the size on it, simply because it is such a unique, it does have such unique dimensions. So here it is next to the Casio Royale, which is super popular. So as you can see, it's just way, way longer and way thinner. So this watch, if you can wear this, I think you'll definitely be able to wear this one. Again, it's a vintage watch, but it does not wear like a lot of the popular rectangular or even square vintage watches nowadays. And of course, I did want to bring out its cousin here, the Ventura. They both have that kind of curved crystal that really does stick out. And here they are next to each other. Now keep in mind, this Ventura is classified as a woman's watch. For some reason, the modern Ventura, this is a modern watch too, it's not vintage, but for some reason these modern Venturas are enormous, absolutely enormous. So I went with this technically a woman's watch, but I have a review on this one if you want to check it out. It wears perfectly fine on my wrist. But besides that, there's not much to say on this watch. It's just super different. I'd be willing to bet you won't find anything with 2 different time zones like this anywhere by a legitimate brand. You do see this kind of on some odd Chinese watches that you find online. But besides this one, I haven't seen anything like it. They are becoming relatively popular again. They're popping up for so relatively easy. I'd be willing to bet if you look on eBay at any point, you'll be able to find one. I've seen these prices fluctuate between 250 to 350, maybe give or take a little more. So don't overpay. If this one does become popular, don't overpay. I think the prices are pretty good at that point. So let's go ahead and throw it on the wrist and compare how this wears on the bracelet compared to the strap. So on the wrist with the strap, it does wear a little bit smaller than the bracelet, I would say, but it doesn't wear as comfortably. I think because of the inability to really size it perfectly, it does have some give, and with the curve of the case, it does wear a little bit odd with that little give that the wear has. But with the bracelet, now that it is tight on the wrist, the curve absolutely really does hug the wrist, and it wears extremely comfortable, and I think it does look quite good if you are willing and able to pull off the gold look. Overall, not much more to say on this watch. It is super unique, super cool, relatively affordable, and really there's nothing like this in the market, so you can't go wrong with this one. You'll be seeing a lot of this one.